Levon Helm sat behind his drum kit like a guardian of American musical tradition, keeping time with the heartbeat of the South and defending authentic rhythm against all invaders.
It's just, those were the first songs that I can remember learning about harmonies.
But beneath his gentle Arkansas drawl and humble demeanor burned a fierce protectiveness for what drumming should truly represent. And he had zero tolerance for players who betrayed those sacred principles. Welcome to another episode of Offstage Tales, where today we're exploring the traditional wisdom of Levon Helm and the 6 drummers who violated his deepest musical beliefs.
Drums, Elvis after he added DJ Fontana.
Now you saw Elvis before he had no drums at the time.
The backbone of the band and keeper of roots music heritage was famous for his quiet dignity, but also for his unforgiving judgment of drummers who chose flashover foundation. Drumming ain't about showing off, Helm once explained to a young musician in 1982. It's about serving the song and keeping the community together through rhythm. Those words became his measuring stick for evaluating every drummer who crossed his path. From circus tricks to mechanical precision, Helm's distaste for these players wasn't just professional criticism. It was cultural warfare between authentic American music and everything he saw threatening to destroy it. These conflicts revealed a man who believed drumming was a sacred responsibility, not a chance for personal glory. So settle in for some down-home truth-telling about the drummers who made this Southern gentleman genuinely angry. 6. Tommy Lee. Starting our countdown at number 6 is a clash between tradition and circus. Tommy Lee of Mötley Crüe. Helm's disgust with the heavy metal showman wasn't about his rock and roll lifestyle. It was about watching Lee turn drumming into a carnival act that completely ignored music's deeper purpose. The revulsion reportedly began in the mid-1980s when Lee's spinning drum solos and upside-down kits dominated MTV coverage.
The International would have a better audience here than just about any town you could go to.
According to former Capitol Records executive Joe Smith, Helm watched one of Lee's performances on television and immediately turned it off, telling his wife Sandy, "That boy's forgotten that drums are supposed to support music, not distract from it. He's treating his kit like a playground instead of an instrument." What appalled Helm wasn't Lee's energy, but his priorities. While Helm had spent decades perfecting the art of making drums disappear into the song's natural flow, Lee was achieving fame through what Helm reportedly called acrobatic nonsense, and drumming that puts the show ahead of the music every single time. Real drumming should make people feel the song deeper, not make them forget there's a song happening, Helm told Modern Drummer in 1987, defending his belief that rhythm should enhance rather than overshadow musical content. The philosophical divide became obvious when both approaches were being celebrated simultaneously in different musical circles. At a 1988 music industry conference, witnesses claim Helm walked out during a discussion about innovative drumming techniques, later telling organizers, "Innovation means better music, not better stunts." Lee seemed unaware of Helm's criticism, focusing on his own theatrical evolution. But for Helm, Lee represented everything wrong with modern drumming: spectacle replacing substance and entertainment value destroying musical integrity. 5. Lars Olrich. At number 5, we encounter Helm's battle against mechanical precision. Lars Olrich of Metallica. Helm's criticism of the Danish metal drummer wasn't about his aggression. It was about watching Ulrich's rigid, quantized approach strip all human warmth and natural swing from what should be a living, breathing rhythm. The disappointment reportedly grew throughout the late 1980s when Metallica's machine-like precision was being praised as the future of drumming. According to former Geffen Records producer Mike Klink, Helm listened to Master of Puppets once and shook his head, telling him, "That boy's playing like he's punching a time clock. There's no soul in it, no conversation with the other musicians, just hammering away like he's building a fence." What troubled Helm wasn't Ulrich's power, but his approach to timing. While Helm had built his reputation on subtle pushes and pulls that made songs breathe naturally, Ulrich was achieving success through what Helm reportedly called robotic pounding and drumming that sounds like it was programmed by computers instead of felt by human hands.
Almost like you're bouncing off the walls in a way you don't figure much past the...
Music needs to swing and sway like a living thing, Helm told Rolling Stone in 1989, explaining his belief that perfect timing actually killed the musical magic. The cultural gap widened when metal fans began expecting all drummers to match Ulrich's precise attack. At a 1990 drum clinic, witnesses claim Helm refused to demonstrate double bass techniques, telling the audience, "I'm here to teach you how to make music dance, not how to make it march." Ulrich seemed focused on his own technical development rather than traditional approaches. But for Helm, Ulrich represented the mechanization of rhythm, replacing human feel with industrial precision. Fourth, Stuart Copeland. Number 4 brings us to Helm's complexity rebellion, Stuart Copeland of The Police. Helm's frustration with the British-American drummer wasn't about his punk energy. It was about watching Copeland overload songs with busy patterns that destroyed the simple groove foundation that made music actually move people.
There wasn't any drummer. Somebody said, Levon can play drums. So they came to see me.
The irritation reportedly peaked during the early 1980s when the Police's intricate arrangements were being celebrated for their sophistication. According to former A&M Records executive Jerry Moss, Helm studied Copeland's playing with growing annoyance, telling him, "Stuart's got more chops than he knows what to do with, but he's using every single one in every single song. Sometimes the best thing a drummer can do is shut up and let the music breathe." What bothered Helm wasn't Copeland's skill, but his restraint issues. While Helm had mastered the art of playing exactly what each song needed and nothing more, Copeland was achieving acclaim through what Helm reportedly called show-off drumming, and patterns so busy they distract listeners from the actual melody and story. "Great drumming should be invisible until you take it away," Helm told Musician magazine in 1983, defending his philosophy that rhythm should support rather than compete with songs. The generational divide became clear when younger drummers began copying Copeland's complex approach. At a 1984 music workshop, witnesses claim Helm demonstrated a simple shuffle beat and said, "This groove has moved people for 100 years, but now everyone thinks they need to reinvent the wheel every 4 bars." Copeland seemed proud of his innovative techniques rather than concerned with traditional values. But for Helm, Copeland represented drumming's overthinking epidemic, replacing natural groove with intellectual complexity. 3. Phil Collins. Number 3 reveals Helm's session musician nightmare, Phil Collins. Helm's resentment toward the Genesis drummer-turned-superstar wasn't about his pop success. It was about watching Collins transform drumming from an instinctive musical conversation into a calculated, studio-perfected product that lost all spontaneity and human connection. The disillusionment reportedly intensified during the 1980s when Collins was dominating both radio and session work with his polished approach. According to former Atlantic Records engineer Tom Dowd, Helm listened to Collins's drum sound on various records and grimaced, telling him, "Phil's got everything technically perfect, but where's the heart? He's turned drumming into an assembly line job where every beat sounds exactly like the last one." What disturbed Helm wasn't Collins's competence, but his sterility. While Helm had built his career on responding to musical moments with intuitive fills and subtle variations that made each performance unique, Collins was achieving widespread recognition through what Helm reportedly called factory drumming and beats that sound like they came from a drum machine programmed by accountants. "Music should surprise you sometimes, even surprise the musicians playing it," Helm told Mix magazine in 1985, criticizing the trend toward over-rehearsed precision that eliminated musical magic. The philosophical conflict became obvious when Collins's gated reverb sound influenced countless drummers to pursue similar processed perfection. At a 1986 recording session, witnesses claim Helm refused to use any electronic processing, telling the engineer, "I want people to hear actual drumsticks hitting actual drums, not some computer's idea of what that should sound like." Collins seemed focused on achieving commercial consistency rather than preserving musical authenticity. But for Helm, Collins represented drumming's industrialization, replacing human expression with manufactured reliability. 2. Charlie Watts. At number 2, we discover Helm's most culturally charged grudge, Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones. Helm's resentment toward the jazz-trained British drummer wasn't about his technical ability. It was about watching Watts receive praise for interpreting American blues and R&B traditions without truly understanding their cultural roots and emotional origins. The cultural tension reportedly simmered throughout the 1960s and 1970s when the Rolling Stones were being celebrated as authentic blues practitioners. According to former Stax Records drummer Al Jackson Jr., Helm would express his frustrations privately, saying, "Charlie plays those rhythms clean and proper, but he's missing the dirt and pain that created them. He learned blues from records, not from life, and it shows in every beat." What frustrated Helm wasn't Watts' skill, but his interpretation. While Helm had absorbed American rhythm traditions through direct cultural immersion in the Arkansas Delta region, Watts was achieving international acclaim through what Helm reportedly called tourist blues and rhythm patterns copied without understanding the stories behind them. "You can't fake growing up with this music in your bones," Helm told Downbeat magazine in 1976, defending his belief that authentic American rhythm required cultural connection beyond technical study. Watts seemed unaware of Helm's cultural concerns, remaining focused on his own musical development. But for Helm, Watts represented cultural appropriation, outsiders claiming expertise in traditions they hadn't lived through. 1. Ringo Star. And finally, at number 1, we reach the most heartbreaking revelation of all, Ringo Star. Yes, the Beatles' beloved drummer reportedly earned Levon Helm's ultimate frustration in what became the most painful example of musical injustice in drumming history.
Myself and all of us, all the players, to finally contribute.
The anguish reportedly began in the mid-1960s when Starr was receiving worldwide adoration despite what Helm considered basic drumming abilities. According to former Capitol Records executive Alan Livingston, Helm would watch Beatles coverage with visible pain, telling his close friends, "Ringo gets called one of the greatest drummers alive for playing simple beats that any competent musician learned in their first year. Meanwhile, real masters get ignored because they're not in the right band." What tormented Helm wasn't Starr's personality, but the recognition disparity. While Helm was delivering sophisticated, nuanced drumming that served complex musical arrangements with perfect taste and timing, Starr was achieving legendary status through what Helm reportedly called elementary patterns, and drumming so basic that it insults everyone who's actually mastered the instrument. The injustice became unbearable when Starr was consistently ranked among history's greatest drummers in music polls. At a 1987 music industry dinner, witnesses claim Helm left early when the conversation turned to Beatles drumming, later confiding to his wife, "It breaks my heart that mediocrity gets worshipped while excellence gets overlooked. So there you have it. Even humble masters harbor deep wounds." Was Levon defending authentic rhythm or nursing unfair recognition? Which drumming philosophy resonates with you? Subscribe and share your beat below.